Live from the top of the beautiful towers at Merle Hay Mall, all 6 stories of it, it's FaithWorks Live with host Michael Damastis.
You're listening to FaithWorks Live, and I am your host, Michael Damastis, and I am so glad that you're joining us today on 99.3 here atop the Tower of Truth at Merle Hay, along the beautiful, scenic Merle Hay Road, where we can just take romantic strolls to see abandoned buildings.
No, we can't.
We could if we wanted to.
We'd have to have a whole new sign if we could.
I think Merle Hay Road is beautiful.
That sign.
Well, listen, I am being joined today in studio. Of course, Dan Hudson's almost always with us on Mondays. And
yes, sir.
Thank you for being here. He's the preacher at Pathway Church in Johnston, and we have our polished producer, Chris Press. But today we are being joined by Jan Mickelson of WHO Radio.
Stay tuned anyway.
So, in just a little bit, he's going to be sharing just a really powerful personal story, and I'm really excited for him to be able to do that. But I want to tell you about something that we're doing, and we're going to be doing this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we're going to pick a winner on Thursday. And here's the challenge for you. Why is your mom the best mom? Why is your mom the best mom? So here's what I want you to do. Send us a brief text to 515-727-5842.
Well, I can tell you why mine was.
And well, I want the listeners to do that. They need to tell us, why is their mom a great mom? Why is your mom a great mom? And send us a brief text, 515-727-5842. And on Thursday's show, we're going to pick a winner. And what you win is a dozen roses to go give to your mom. Because that way you can look like the greatest son or daughter ever, and you didn't even have to pay for anything. All you got to do is send a text.
I got married when I was 19.
Wow. And you married up, by the way, because I know your wife, and she's a great person.
As my boss, Joel, says, I outkicked my coverage. Again.
Well, like I said, Jan Mickelson is here in the studio with us today. And So
what I said after I'd met my soon-to-be wife, where we were living, you had to be 21 to be married, to get a marriage license, and I was only 19.
Oh.
So without that 21-year-old threshold, you had to get parental permission.
So you had to go and ask Mom if you could get married.
My mom lived in California, so I called her and said, Mom, I've met a girl I love, and I want to get married. Is that okay? She said, sure, as long as you're home by 10:30. So she signed it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And were you home?
I'm still not home yet. But I've been married half century or more now.
Well, and like I said, she's a great person, and
she is.
I have gotten to know and love your wife. She's a great gal. And I want to tell you, Jan, first off, thank you for coming. Thank you for being willing to do this.
My pleasure.
I had you come to my church, and you shared your story with my church, and it was an incredible blessing to our church family. They just loved being able to hear from you and how God has worked in you, and something that was tremendously difficult in your life. And that was very, in my opinion, it was very courageous of you to come and share that because it's personal, and it's...
and given the reputation of your church. That was courageous.
Just coming is courageous. That's right.
Yeah.
Just showing up is an act of courage.
I was afraid to stand by your church sign because that's been known to be a target.
It can be at times. It certainly can be. So Jan, tell me about the events that kind of led up to and you had this stroke, and it changed and altered your life. I mean, big time.
It did.
Tell me about that.
November last year, right before Thanksgiving, I was outside trying to clean the snow and ice off of my driveway, and I worked really hard to get that done, and I came back in the house. I was just soaking wet. I was just sweating is something that people do when they work hard, Pastor. I just thought I need to throw that into the conversation. It could happen to you someday.
It might, but I work hard to avoid that.
You can't sweat by avoiding work.
So, you'd be surprised.
Good point. So I came back in the house, and my wife was cooking in a brand new utensil that I thought was a perfect Christmas gift for her. It was one of these pressure cookers, brand new, that I fell for one of these infomercials on the tube. I fell for it, and the first time we tried to use it, the results did not look like the picture on the box.
So you are the kind of husband that buys your wife complicated gifts.
They're not complicated if you read the directions. But what guy reads the directions?
Exactly.
What guy needs to?
We don't. We don't need to.
So she said, maybe we better get out the instruction manual. So I grabbed it and I started to try to explain it. And apparently she thought I was more incoherent than usual. So she panicked and called 911, thinking that if I'm incoherent, something must be really wrong, because I am never incoherent. You've never heard me incoherent, have you?
Well, not intentionally. Let's say it that way.
Yeah.
I've never intentionally heard you be
Sometimes
incoherent.
my conversations lack cohesion. They sort of fall apart in the middle somewhere. So
So she got really worried.
she did. She diagnosed me as having some kind of an event that she wasn't too thrilled about. So she wanted a second opinion. So she called 911, and they sent the emergency crew, and they gave me their random test, what they give all people who are going through similar events. Asked me a bunch of questions. Apparently, I flunked that test.
Wow.
So they hauled me to.
And now these questions, by the way, they're questions like, what year is it? Who's
Yes,
the president?
yes.
What's your name? Okay.
Yeah, and what's your full name? And can you spell your name? I had to cram for that's what I would recommend highly. If you gentlemen, if you want to avoid a serious hassle in your life, memorize your name and be prepared to spell it upon request.
There you go. There you go.
That's not easy.
Nope, not under certain circumstances.
Well, so they took me to the Mercy, and they took some pictures, and they discovered there was a big old blood clot in my brain. And they gave me TPA. That is a chemical they give that is supposed to dissolve blood clots. So I was given that, administered that within a timely fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And they put me on a helicopter and sent me to Iowa City, where they went in and surgically removed the clot.
Wow. And this was all, I mean, this happened fast.
Yeah, within about an hour.
Wow.
Boom, boom, boom. And they just hauled me off by ambulance to Mercy, where they took pictures and they found what they were looking for and confirmed my wife's diagnosis. Something's going wrong with Jan's brain. She saved my life
Wow.
by doing that. I thought it was a little aggressive.
Well, sometimes we might question her decision, but for the most part, we say that was a fantastic move on her part.
Well, we're from Iowa. We're Iowa nice. I don't want to inconvenience anybody.
Yeah.
Don't call the ambulance.
They're busy.
They're actually saving lives. Don't waste their time on me, for Pete's sake.
Wow.
So I spent several weeks in Iowa City trying to recover.
Right.
And they took me after that to On With Life here in Ankeny,
Yes.
which is a rehab place for people who have had brain-damaging events like accidents or gunshot wounds or a stroke.
Now I remember
All of those were there when I was there.
Yes, and I remember you sharing at our church that you had experienced for the first time in your life some feelings in that place that you had not up to that point experienced, and that was you had described feeling lonely in there.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
When the lights, they start shutting down the lights in the evening, and when all the nurses are at the nurses' station, you can't hear them talk anymore. And they start shutting off the lights in the hall, and there's no more noise. There's no sound of civilization left in the building. Then you're stuck with your thoughts in your room, and that is a feeling I've never experienced. That kind of emptiness, never experienced before. Hope I never do again. So, I guess my conclusion for the listeners here is: if you have somebody in a care facility somewhere, a nursing home, or the hospital, or even a jail, don't leave them there unattended. Go see them. Get off your keister and go see them.
That's right.
Because they are so lonely.
And that's I don't know. I've visited, with you a few times when you were up there.
Yep.
And as
I really appreciated that too.
oh, that's you and I've been friends for years, but going up to see you up there was it was a challenge. It was hard, because I knew that you were struggling. You had shared as much with me, and but it didn't stay that way.
No.
You didn't stay in that. Not only did you not stay in that place, but you didn't stay in that place emotionally either. And
No.
how did that change for you?
Well, luckily for me, I had my iPad and a new pair of earphones. I had some earbuds. I plugged them in and went to YouTube, and I started to download Christian music. And I started to serenade myself with some of my favorite music. And I'd lie there all night singing about God and His love and His mercy.
Wow.
I would just minister to myself, just listening to God's music and His people. It was wonderful.
Wow.
Although the nursing staff did not appreciate me singing in the middle of the night, because there are several people on my floor, that were really high maintenance people. You wake them up, they started to demand room service.
Yeah.
And the nurses were not particularly thrilled with that idea.
Right.
He says, if you keep up the noise, you're going to wake up that person 2 rooms over, and then we'll have to attend to them.
Perish the thought.
Yes. and it did. It woke them up, and they started yelling, literally, "Nurse!"
Oh, wow.
I wasn't even a nurse, and I felt like responding. You want to pipe down? What a sock in it. We're
Wow.
trying to sleep over here.
So one of the things that led you out of the pit emotionally was you were just praising God.
Absolutely.
By yourself.
Absolutely.
Man, I hope if you're listening to this, I hope you hear that message, because that's a really awesome thought. That when you get into a place where you feel like you're just all alone.
Yeah.
You're never alone when you're worshiping God, and you kind of take it off yourself and you're worshiping Him.
And I was singing and hearing very familiar hymns that I'd grown up with.
Wow.
They'd grown up with listening to the family radio and listening to Christian radio in the background.
Wow. Well, we're talking with Jan Mickelson. You've heard Jan.
The other thing I would recommend is if you have somebody who's for the first time in one of the care facilities in a big hospital somewhere, buy them a set of noise-canceling earphones. I'm serious about that. Because in the middle of the night, when they hear the only thing they hear is the rumble of the furnace or the air conditioner, they won't be able to sleep. Muslims believe pretty much the same thing. They don't like cats and dogs either. Hadith that angels cannot come to the house that has a dog in it.
You're listening to FaithWorks Live, and I'm your host, Michael Damastis. And you are hearing today from Jan Mickelson,
and Imam Damastis,
who is joining us in studio. And listen, Jan is a handful, always. And that means that his wife, if there's a way to get to heaven outside of Jesus, I think your wife has found that. But we'll say that it's only through Jesus.
She is long-suffering.
We have been talking about how great she is. She's a great gal. So listen.
How many times in one day can you say, last nerve?
I don't know.
I think 143 is the record.
Well, listen, I want to know why your mom is the best mom. So what I want you to do is send us a brief text here at the studios, 515-727-5842, and tell us in a brief text, why is your mom the best mom? And we're going to pick a winner out of all the texts that we receive, and the winner will be chosen on Thursday, and you're going to get a free dozen roses and a big display to go and give to your mom.
Well, I can cut right to the top of the list right now, because my mom led me to the Lord.
See, that's the kind of stuff we're wanting to hear about.
I know exactly what you're looking for, so I know how to cheat.
I want to buy you roses now, Jan.
Too late.
So we've been talking with Jan about this stroke that he had, and that was a year ago. Not this last November, but a year ago November.
Yeah.
And you had said that you had been outside, you had been doing work outside for the first time in your life, and then you came in. And
I did not say that.
Oh, I thought that's what you said. Okay,
I was inspiring the entire neighborhood to clean their sidewalks.
But you came in after doing some heavy work outside, and you were obviously, sweating and all that, and then your wife noticed that because of the pressure cooker gift you bought her, she was talking to you about that, and you weren't making a lot of sense. She got worried. She called 911. You were taken to the hospital. You were flown.
She panicked and saved my life.
Yes, but they flew you to Iowa City.
Yeah.
You were there for quite a while.
About 3 weeks.
And then you moved from Iowa City to a place in Ankeny called On With Life.
Which is a place that does rehab for brain-damaged people.
Right. And so the conclusion, obviously, is that you had a massive
major
stroke.
Yeah.
And
almost wiped me out.
And when I remember coming to see you, you, to be frank, I mean, you didn't look that great. You weren't doing that great.
I'm still not really doing that great.
You're doing so much better than you were, brother.
Yeah. I was kind of out of it there.
You didn't stay at On With Life. And why did you not stay there?
Because I remembered an interview that I had done several years ago with Ruth Leakey. She is a Marshalltown, Iowa lady who had a stroke in 2000. And she was very unhappy with the progress that she had been making. She had lost the use of her hand, and it affected her speech, and it affected her ability to walk. And she was unhappy with the lack of progress, so she started to do a bunch of research, and she thought she came across some cutting-edge medical procedures or techniques that could help her. And so it's called traditional Chinese medicine.
Traditional Chinese medicine.
TCM for short.
And what does it entail?
And she came back and she had lots and lots of progress. We gained a lot of what she had lost. So much so that she was asked to write a book about it. And she sent me a book back when it first came out, and I interviewed her. And I was so impressed with this lady's enthusiasm and about her. In fact, I could not detect any loss of attributes in this woman.
Wow. So she gained back almost all of her motor function.
Yes.
Cognitive ability and all of that stuff.
Yes. So I said, I want some of that.
Now, was her stroke, would you label it more severe than yours or as severe?
I think about the same.
About the same. Okay. So this is a very big deal.
So I tried to chase her down, couldn't find her. I had phone numbers, and the phone numbers weren't working. I just irritated her staff. Finally, I found from my catalog of phone numbers a lady in Marshalltown that I had interviewed and become close to, and said, "Can you go and find Ruth for me? Go knock on her door and say, have her call me. Will you do that for me?" She said she'd happy to do that. And Ruth finally called me. And I said, "Here's what's going on. I remember your story. Is there a way that I could take advantage of what you experienced?" And she said, "Sure is." And so she got me hooked up. I had to get a visa because you can't just get your passport and go to China. You have to have permission and an invitation to go to China.
Wow.
You have to convince them that you're worth an invite.
Wow.
So they carefully crafted a letter, and they invited me to come for that treatment, and she set me up with a traditional Chinese physician. I was there for 3 months.
Wow.
The treatment over there is traditional Chinese medicine, which is largely acupuncture plus herbal concoctions and vigorous, aggressive forms of massage. They call it tuina over there.
So when you say aggressive massage, is this they kind of bring in the Russian Olga, to kind of do her thing?
So you've had that.
No, but it just, the description kind of put a mental image in my head.
I saw the affection in your eyes.
So is it painful? I mean, is it?
They can rub you the wrong way, yes.
Sorry, that's not supposed to be funny, but it kind of is.
But they go to reconnect the muscle groups that the stroke has severed from your brain.
Sure.
So what they do, I'll describe it for you. They'll insert a needle. In my case, it was about a half a dozen in my scalp. I looked like it was a rooster with needles just sticking straight up. They put 2 or 3 more in my arm and in my
your scalp, in
yeah.
your arm. Okay.
And then they would hook up an electrical gadget to those different posts, and it's called tensing unit.
Mm-hmm.
It's designed to make those muscle groups flex,
Sure.
and it does. So it reconnects your brain to those circuits that the stroke has blocked. So the stroke was in my right temporal lobe, which meant the left side of my body was the side that was affected most. So I lost ankle control on my left side, and my left wrist, and I'm still not able to fully use my left hand.
I just remember, by the way, Jan, if you know Jan, you know that he's always cracking wise. And I remember going to visit you at On With Life, and you would pick up your hand and just let it drop, and
Let it fall.
Yeah, and
mostly dead.
Mostly dead. It would kill me.
That's the Princess Bride dialogue.
Yes. So, anyways, Jan,
if you don't have that memorized, you're culturally way behind most Iowans.
Now, when we come back from our break, I want to continue to talk with Jan about his experience in China, because he will tell you that he thanks God for what has happened to him in the stroke, because without it, there would not have been some experiences that he was able to have. We'll be right back.
It's Mikey. He's better than TV. We're listening to Mikey, and best of all, it's free.
You're listening to FaithWorks Live.
A special room in the afterlife for you for that.
That was my mother-in-law, Linda Curry, who writes great jingles.
So you're already suffering then.
She is listening. I know she's listening. I love my mother-in-law. Most of the time, she's a great person, and she does a fantastic job of writing jingles, and genuinely, she is a great person. And so thank you, Linda, for your jingle, and I thank you for doing that. I thank you for listening. Our show, FaithWorks Live, is proudly sponsored by Baldwin Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. Nathan Shanks, the owner, is a great guy, a great friend. And I've been telling you, as we've come back in from breaks, I want to tell you about this. We're all this week, we're wanting to give you this opportunity to send in a brief text, to tell us why your mom is the best mom. So text us, 515-727-5842. That's 515-727-5842. Tell us why your mom is the best mom, and on Thursday, we're going to announce the best story we get, and that person's going to win a dozen roses, and you'll be able to go give that to your mother for Mother's Day, which will be fantastic. So send in your text so we can hear your story. I'm excited to hear from you on that. Now, we've been talking with Jan Mickelson of WHO Radio, longtime veteran host of the Jan Mickelson Show, and it is so intimidating sitting next to a guy like that who knows radio inside and out, and is known for just being loved by all of the state of Iowa for what he does, and I appreciate that. And he's sharing today a very personal story from his life, and that's when he had in November of 2015, he had a stroke. And that stroke really altered the course of his life. And he has been telling how he went from the day that his wife, and he considers his wife having to be the one that was instrumental in saving his life. Because had she not made the call when she made the call,
she still does every single day.
She saves your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so cool.
There was a fellow there at On With Life who had a life event that put him in that place where he had going through rehab. And he told me one day, he said, my wife left me because she did not want to be married to somebody who had this kind of a handicap.
Wow.
left me at Christmas.
Oh, my goodness.
He was just devastated.
Why wouldn't he be?
My wife has just hung with me. She is my number one advocate.
Well,
And she got me to China.
and she's the reason I like you.
I knew that's another. Put another reason on the list.
Yep, she is a great person. But I tell you, when you went to China, you went through some really different, alternative, some might even label it radical therapy. And what were the results, Jan?
Well, I went over there in a wheelchair, and I came back just with a cane.
That's pretty significant.
I was
That's
able to
huge.
get around. I was able to handle the airport and handle an airplane without having a great deal of assistance.
I remember seeing some of the videos. In fact, I remember seeing one of the videos where I saw you standing up and walking.
Yep.
And I know this is on Facebook because your family was putting stuff up on Facebook.
That
And
was my son Scott with us too.
yeah, and I got to tell you, just honestly, I'm confessing this, but I wept watching that Facebook video of you walking. I'm like, oh Lord, you're so awesome. Thank you so much for what you've done. And that's
the other thing. I got in touch with thousands and thousands and thousands of Iowans who told me that I was on their prayer list.
Isn't that great?
I still have to thank everybody that is listening to you. Many of those people probably were praying for me.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, the power of prayer and what I was going through.
And you believe, honestly, that God was instrumental in this process. I mean, a lot of people would look at something like this and say, God didn't do that. That was just a bad thing. But
I have to set this up a little bit. Last weekend, I went to a funeral in Iowa, all the way over in the left coast, where I grew up in Harlan, Iowa.
Okay.
And here's my brief critique of Christians. For them, when they get under times of duress and stress, their real faith kinds of bubbles to the surface.
That's right.
And it tends to be the substance of which tends to be cliches. And they repeat the same cliches over and over because that's all they know is this is what fits in this conversation at this moment. You know, God knows what's going on, you know. And that's supposed to fix stuff. But what I got over and over, when people would talk to me about what I was going through, said, well, I know what you're going through, Jan, is really tough. This stroke and everything has got to be really, really hard on you. But what do you think God is trying to teach you through this? Like I would just sit here watching a ball game and God was trying to get to me. So he whacked me over the head with a stroke so he would have my attention. Well, that is similar to John 9. As he went along, that is, as Jesus went along, he saw a man blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, well, who in this case sinned? Was it this man or his parents that he was blind from birth? And Jesus rejected the premise of the question. And he was actually kind of snarky in return. And he said, neither the man nor his parents sinned, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him.
Right.
So the astute people, when they hear me answer that question, well, what works of God was he trying to display in you? And I have an answer.
What is that?
Well, I finally was able to connect with Ruth Leike in Marshalltown, and she got me on a plane to Beijing. I got all the way to China. I think it was like a 12-hour plane ride.
Wow.
Or more. Got off the plane. The treatment facility was in a town called Tianjin. Which is about an hour and a half to the south of Beijing. Close to the China Sea.
Okay.
And the treatment happened in the hotel. It wasn't a hospital. It was a hotel, a 5-star hotel in this big, huge Chinese city. The doctor would come to the rooms of the patients. He would have a circuit. He would go to my room, and then he'd go upstairs to another ladies' room and administer the. I should tell you a little bit more about the needles. While the needles were impaled in my body, he'd put these little pucks of wood on, like they were the consistency of cork. He'd put them on top. He would impale them on the needles.
Ow.
Yeah, and then he would light those pucks of wood on fire. The fire would go out and they would just smoke. The room would fill with smoke. And I asked him, what kind of wood was it? He said, wormwood. And apparently even the smoke of the wormwood was supposed to be therapeutic. It was antibacterial and antiviral.
Interesting.
So it would also heat up the needles.
Sure.
And cause even more stimulation.
Huh.
That's code for it hurt more.
Wow.
So while I would be down there lying in bed smoking, the first time he did it to me, the smoke detector went off. We're lucky the sprinkler didn't kick in, but it was just the smoke detector went off. The hotel management was not pleased. But while I was being smoldering there, he would go upstairs and treat another patient. Then he'd come down and put me out and then remove the needles, and that would be it for the day.
Wow. And you were there. I mean, this isn't a short period. I mean, you were literally there for 3 months.
Yes.
Undergoing this every single day.
Yes. And I got off the plane in Beijing, and Ruth grabbed me by the elbow and pulled me aside. And she said, this is a ministry. This is not just for your health. This is a ministry. We're trying to use traditional Chinese medicine as a way to reach China.
Wow.
There's more than 1 billion people there. There's several million just in that little town called Tianjin. That little town.
Several million.
Several million there.
Wow.
And Ruth grabbed me by the elbow and pulled me off and said, well, our little ministry here has borne a little bit of fruit. My first assistant became a Christian. And she wants to be baptized. And she would like you to baptize her.
That is such an incredible thing. And when we come back, we're going to listen to Jan complete this story of how everything that happened to him seems to kind of bring him to this moment where at the time he wasn't able to do physically what was being asked, but God did it through him.
From Sailorville Lake to Southeast Polk, you know where to find us, right here on 99.3 The Truth, KTIA. Join us now by calling 515-727-KTIA.
You're listening to FaithWorks Live, and I am your host, Michael Damastis, and joining me very quietly in the studio today is Dan Hudson, who is prayerfully contemplating everything that we're discussing.
Taking notes.
His whole spiritual life is flashing in front of his eyes right now.
We're also being joined by Jan Mickelson. But I want to share with you something. I have tried to do my own plumbing jobs. They always end with the same result: epic fail. Plumbing is just a challenge.
But you get a chance to meet a whole bunch of new people in your life, and you call the professionals come and bail you out.
Exactly. And thankfully, there is an incredibly reputable company that specializes in plumbing: Baldwin Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. Nathan Shanks, the owner, makes it a point to deliver first-rate service to his residential and commercial clients. No matter what the project is, no matter how minute the issue may be, Baldwin Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing will leave you 100% satisfied. In fact, their customers are deeply loyal, and much of their business comes from referrals from satisfied customers. Call Baldwin Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing today to get your plumbing issues off your back, and your wife will love you for it. That's 515-371-4036. 515-371-4036. Now, we've been talking with Jan Mickelson.
So are you the little drip she wants fixed?
I definitely think if my wife thought I could be fixed, she would call anybody in a heartbeat to do that. So she's, we'll just move on off that one, Jan.
All right.
Well, Jan's been telling us about his experience in China, and he literally steps off the plane, and he's got a trip to make from Beijing to Tianjin. But as he's off the plane and he's met by the gal there, Ruth, she tells him, I want you to baptize this gal.
And I've told her that you would do it. And I said, why did you do that? I've never done that in my life. I'm not a minister. I don't even go to her church. But she's been reading the Bible, and she realizes she has to be baptized, not in order to be saved, but in order to be an obedient Christian. She could become mature enough very, very rapidly.
Wow.
And so she said, I told her you would be able to do that. Well, there was a river that ran right past the hotel, but I wouldn't put my worst enemy in that river.
Wasn't the cleanest river?
It was very nutritious, let's put it this way. It's not easy being green.
Right, yeah. I hear, by the way, as an aside, there is a very big pollution problem in China. And, like, people die all the time this particular time of year from just the smog.
Yeah, people would walk around wearing masks.
Yeah, the smog is so bad. It's like they have like these levels and stuff, and so you can get it, and it will literally be like having sand in your teeth if you're just breathing it, and so that lodges in your lungs, and people die from it. It's serious.
Yikes! Yeah,
it is. Well, the air wasn't that bad, but when they had the Olympics over there, they had to warn people, especially the runners, that running, deeply ingesting the air might not be good for them. So I don't know what they did to avoid gasping for breath while you were running.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure either. So tell me about this. How do you get from there's no physical way, and then you go through treatment, and tell me about the baptism.
Well, I said, I will do it if we can figure out a way to practically get it done. Well, this was a 5-star hotel. There was a swimming pool in the basement, and there was a hot tub down there that had never been hot, ever. It wasn't even room temperature.
It was a tub.
It just was a water container, and I told this lady I would be happy to baptize her. She might be one of the most beautiful people I've ever met in the world. Beautiful Chinese lady who responded to the gospel. It's very rare to even have the opportunity to hear the gospel in China, let alone to have an opportunity to respond to it.
Wow.
She did, and she was so hungry. I left a Bible over there for her, and she's been consuming it.
Wow.
And so we can do this. I said, we can do this. On one of my last days there, we went down to the basement of this hotel, and we went into the hot tub where it wasn't hot. And my son and he held her, so she was terrified that I would drop her, and that would be the last of her spiritual growth.
If you're going to die, being baptized is a good way to go, though.
Yeah, just ask Constantine. Because he wanted to be baptized towards the end of his life because he thought he could. That's permission to sin some more.
Wow, he must have been a Calvinist. But go ahead.
No, I don't think so. If God just smote your left channel, you know who did it. You just overloaded the left side of the dial.
That was an inappropriate joke, and I apologize to all of my Calvinist friends. Forgive me.
We were mourning that joke before the foundation of the earth.
That's right. But God ordained it would be funny. So, anyways, you are going to baptize her, and you're in the tub with her, and your son's helping you.
So as not to drop her.
Right.
And he was also filming it with his iPhone.
Right.
So we went through the process. I was able to baptize her. I remembered, I've been to enough of these in the churches that I've attended as a kid, Baptist churches. I remember what you're supposed to say.
There you go.
And I remembered it.
That's awesome. Now, and I get to say this. So I and my church were, because you came and spoke, we were blessed. We got to see the video of this. And I have to say, when we played this video, and it was at the end of your message, there was not a dry eye in the house. Everybody was weeping because it was a powerful moment. It was
certainly a blessing for me.
And it was just such an incredible thing to see you performing the baptism of this young woman who wanted you to do the baptism, from America, an American Christian who...
I mean, what are the odds, for Pete's sake, that somebody from the United States would show up that even knew what a baptism was?
Yeah.
I had to explain to everybody who was there what the meaning of a baptism was and for whom it was supposed to be an act of obedience and what it was supposed to accomplish and what it can't accomplish.
Right.
So I gave them a little bit of a Bible study before we did it.
And it was such a beautiful thing to witness and to see, and then to hear you say, and this is, frankly, I mean, it got me choked up then, and it gets me choked up when I think about it.
That's why I had the stroke, brother.
That's it.
I would never have had that blessing had I not been in that place at that time. And that's what it's meant that the works of God might be displayed. I mean, just talk about the sovereignty of God and the providence of God, actually using little old me from Iowa to baptize the first convert of the Church of China.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Out of billions of people, I had a chance to baptize somebody who came to Jesus because of the gospel being presented. Part of the mission of tcmconnection.com is, if people want to know more about the treatment that I went through, that would be a good place to go. tcmconnection.net.
Okay.
So I was blessed down to my core by this process.
I got to tell you, Jan has been my friend for a number of years, and we've traveled literally the globe together. And I've gotten to know Jan as truly a man of faith and a man of deep conviction. But being able to see him in the biggest test of his life, and knowing that all he's holding on to is Jesus that whole time, was one of the most powerful witnesses that I've ever seen. And I got to tell you, if you're listening, you got to hear what Jan is saying. God used the worst thing in his life and made it the best thing in his life.
Yep.
And that is such a great thing about our God, in his grace. I mean, there's moments, we talked about the despair of loneliness that he felt, and that went from that to God using him to baptize this young woman. I mean, that's amazing what God did. And I just hope that is an encouragement to you who are listening today, and just to know that God doesn't intend for you to stay where you're at. Even if you feel like you're in the pits of despair, he's not going to leave you there.
Use the opportunity that God gives you to minister to somebody else.
That's right. That's right.
I saw the title of a book. It was kind of off color, actually. I'm not going to give the actual title. It says, "So You Have Cancer. Don't Mess It Up."
Wow. Well, and that's the message. God can use the worst thing that's happening to you
to minister to somebody else.
And that's what he wants to do.
He can turn the worst part of your life right now into a blessing to you and to others.
Well, you've been listening to FaithWorks Live, and you heard a powerful story from Jan Mickelson.
Thank you, Pastor, for being my friend, and thank you for being there.
I thank you for being my friend and for coming on and sharing your story today, brother, and I look forward to hearing back with you all tomorrow. God bless.